Udila Purabhavage Vijamani Gaurayamani Jage Bhakata Samuhaloya Sate Gela Nagara Braje Tathai Bajalo Kol Gana Gana Tahe Janjera Preme Dala Dala Shonara Yanga Charanenu Puravaje Mukunda Madhava Yadava Hari Bolena Bolore Vadana Bori Mukunda Madhava Yadava Hari Bolena Bolore Vadana Bori Micheni Dava Shegelore Rati Divasha Sharira Saje Micheni Dava Shegelore Rati Divasha Sharira Saje Yemona Dulabha Manava Deha Hayaki Koro Bhavana Keho Yemona Dulabha Manava Deha Hayaki Koro Bhavana Keho Ebena Vajile Jasoda Suta Charame Pori Velaje Ebena Vajile Jasoda Suta Charame Pori Velaje Yudita Tapana Hoile Asta Vinagelo Boli Hoi Bevyasta Yudita Tapana Hoile Asta Vinagelo Boli Hoi Bevyasta Tabekeno Ebe Ala Sahoy Nabajari Doya Raje Tabekeno Ebe Ala Sahoy Nabajari Doya Raje Jivanaya Nita Jana Hasan Tahinana Vidha Vipadabha Jivanaya Nita Jana Hasan Tahinana Vidha Vipadabha Namashai Kari Jatane Tumi Taka Hayapana Kaje Namashai Kari Jatane Tumi Taka Hayapana Kaje Jiveya Kalyana Sadhana Kan Jagate Asiye Moduyana Jiveya Kalyana Sadhana Kan Jagate Asiye Moduyana O Vidyati Miratapana Rupe Ridga Gane Viraje Vidyati Miratapana Rupe Ridga Gane Viraje Krishna Nam Shudha Koriyapan Jurao Bhakati Vinoda Pran Krishna Nam Shudha Koriyapan Jurao Bhakati Vinoda Pran Nam Bina Kichu Nahi Koyaro Choda Bhuvana Maje Nam Bina Kichu Nahi Koyaro Choda Bhuvana Maje Jeev Jago Gaura Chandra Bole Jeev Jago Gaura Chandra Bole Kotha Nidra Jao চিরকোলে বাজিব বলিয়া এসে সংসার ভিতরে ভুলিয়া রহিলে তুমি অবিদ্যার ভরে তোমার লইতে আমি হইনু অবতার আমি বিন বন্ধু হার কে আছে তোমার এনেছে ঔষধি মায়া নাশিবার লাগি হরি নাম মহামন্ত্র লও তুমি মাগি বাকাতি বিনোদ প্রভু চরণে পড়িয়া সেই হরি নাম মন্ত্র লইল মাগিয়া হরে কৃষ্ণ 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 হরে 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 রাম 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 হরে হরে জাগো জীব জাগো গৌরাচন্দ্র বলে কোথা নিদ্রা যাও মায়া পিশাচির কোলে বাজিব বলিয়া এসে সংসার ভিতরে ভুলিয়া রহিলে তুমি অবিদ্যার ভরে তোমার লইতে আমি হইনু অবতার আমি বিন বন্ধু হার কে আছে lao tumi magi. Bhakti vinoda Prabhu charane poriya. Say Hari Nama mantra loilo magiya. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jamuna Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari.
Gopi Jana
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari.
Gopi Jana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Ramona Tira Banachari. Ramona Tira Banachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Radha Madhava Hare.
Jai Amaspat Paramahansa Parivrajagacharya Sattvaresvara Smadhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Bhagavad Ki Jai Ananta Kodi Vaishnavindra Ki Jai Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Sri Radha Krishna Mokh Gopinath Sam Khand Radha Khand Giri Godhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham Ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai All glories to the Assemblage. All glories to the Assemblage. Thank you very much.
Krishna, Madam Anglo Bessances, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Madam.
Hare Bol. Hare Krishna. Kusha Prabhu.
How
Hare
are
Bol.
you?
Hare
Nice
Prabhu.
to see
Hare
you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Yes,
Madam.
I am very grateful. I'm here 2 times this week, which is quite amazing.
Yes, the mercy is unlimited.
Krishna is unlimited.
I put the verse on the screen, please.
Okay. I'll just start chanting.
Yes.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, text number 18. I'll chant the Sanskrit. Eshavai Bhagavad Shakshad Adyo Narayana Puman Mohayan Moyaya Lokam Gudhas Charity Vishnishu. Translation. Esha, this. Vai, positively. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Shakshad, original. Adaya, the first. Narayana, the Supreme Lord who lies down on the water. Pumam, the Supreme Enjoyer. Mohayan, bewildering. Moyaya, by his self-created energy. Lokam, the planets. Gudaha, who is inconceivable. Charity, moves. Vishnushu, among the Vishnu family. Srila Prabhupada's translation and purport. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer, but he is moving amongst the descendants of Vrishni, just like one of us, and he's bewildering us with his self-created energy. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Vedic system of acquiring knowledge is a deductive process. The Vedic knowledge is received perfectly by disciplic succession from authorities. Such authorities is never dogmatic, as ill-conceived by less intelligent persons. The mother is the authority to verify the identity of the father. She is the authority for such confidential knowledge. Therefore, authority is not dogmatic. In the Bhagavad Gita, this truth is confirmed in the 2nd verse of the 4th chapter, and the perfect system of learning is to receive it from authority. The Vedic system is accepted universally as truth, but only the false arguer speaks about it. For example, modern spacecraft fly in the sky. And when scientists say that they travel to the other side of the moon, men believe these stories blindly because they have accepted the modern scientists as authorities. The authorities speak and the people in general believe them. But in the case of Vedic truths, they have been taught not to believe. Even if they accept them, they give a different interpretation. Each and every man wants a direct perception of Vedic knowledge, but foolishly they deny it. This means that the misguided man can believe one authority, the scientists, but will reject the authority of the Vedas. The result is that people have become degraded. I'm sorry, that people have degenerated. Yes, the result is that people have degenerated. Here is an authority speaking about Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead and the first Narayan. Even such an impersonalist as Acharya Shankaracharya has said in the beginning of his commentation on the Bhagavad Gita that Narayan, the personality of Godhead, is beyond the material creation. The universe is one of the material creations, but Narayan is transcendental to such material paraphernalia. Bhishma Dev is one of the 12 Mahajans who know the principles of transcendental knowledge. His confirmation of Lord Sri Krishna's being the original personality of Godhead is also corroborated by the impersonalist Shankaracharya. All of other acharyas have also confirmed this statement, and thus there is no chance of not accepting Lord Sri Krishna as the original personality of Godhead. Bhishma Dev says that he's the first Narayan. This is also confirmed by Brahmaji in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-14. Krishna is the first Narayan. In the spiritual world Vaikuntha, there are unlimited numbers. There are unlimited numbers of Narayanas who are all the same personality of Godhead and are considered to be plenary expansions of the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. The first form of the Lord, Sri Krishna, first expands himself as the form of Baladev. And Baladev expands in so many other forms such as Shankarshan, Pradyumna, Anuruddha, Vasudev, Narayan, Purusha, Rama, and Nrsimha. All these expansions are one and the same Vishnu Tattva. And Sri Krishna is the original source of all the plenary expansions. He is therefore the direct personality of Godhead. He is the creator of the material world, and he is a predominating deity known as Narayan in all the Vaikuntha planets. Therefore, his movements amongst human beings are another sort of bewilderment. The Lord therefore says in the Bhagavad Gita that foolish persons consider him to be one of the human beings without knowing the intricacies of his movements. The bewilderment regarding Sri Krishna is due to the action of his twofold internal and external energies upon the third one, called marginal energy. The living entities are expansions of his marginal energy, and thus they are sometimes bewildered by the internal energy and sometimes by the external energy. By internal energetic bewilderment, Sri Krishna expands himself into unlimited numbers of Narayans and exchanges or accepts transcendental loving service from the living entities in the transcendental world. And by his external energetic expansions, he incarnates himself in the material world among the men, animals, or demigods to re-establish his forgotten relationship with the living entities in different species of life. Great authorities like Bhishma, however, escape his bewilderment by the mercy of the Lord. Om Gana Timirandasya Gana Shalakaya Chakshuranmanatam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Padati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakalan Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarabhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namastute, Tapta Kanchana Gourangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sutadevi, Pranamami Hari Priye, Vanchakalpa Turubhyascha, Vipasindhubhyeva cha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi, Pasatyadesha Tarine. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Tinamane. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane. Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Tinamane. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasari Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare. I'm grateful for all the devotees that's on the call today. Thank you so very much. It's a blessing to be here. And this verse, well, I can only say that I will beg for the mercy from all these great acharyas that have been that are in the disciplic succession to somehow give me a little intelligence, like let my intelligence be a little bit awakened so I can share a little bit about this verse, because this verse is very technical. At the same time, it's being spoken by Bhishma, so he wants us to understand it. he's sharing this, and he wants us to understand about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He wants us to know exactly who Krishna is, and he wants us to understand how to best understand. He wants us to how to best understand the different aspects of Krishna. So here's Krishna that's standing in front of Bhishma Dev, and all these other rishis and so many other people are gathered there. And many of them don't know that Krishna is God. They don't know. They don't know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just imagine us maybe walking into the temple room, and Srila Prabhupada is there, and we know Srila Prabhupada, but then other people come in and they don't know. They have no idea who he is, no understanding. Or for that matter, we see the Archa Vigraha form of the Lord in the temple. We have some understanding somehow that this is Krishna in this form that's there. However, we know that many people are there and don't understand who Krishna is. They come into the temple and they have no clue. And so this is basically kind of a way that we can, in this world, understand a little bit about people that were there during the time of Krishna being on the planet, and they had no idea who Krishna was. So this verse, there is a couple of important, there's many important points. However, what Bhishma Dev is explaining to Yudhishthira Maharaj and all of the different rishis is this, who Krishna is, how to understand Krishna. And so he says in the Sanskrit of this verse, it says, Shakshad Bhagavan, that Krishna, Shakshad Bhagavan, is the original personality of Godhead. He is the original personality of Godhead. And then he goes on to explain in the verse that, in the translation, that he, Krishna, and he uses the Sanskrit Adyo Narayan, that he, Krishna, is also the first Narayan. So he's now giving understanding about Krishna's expansion, the Supreme Lord's expansion, because Krishna is, in the spiritual world, So we can understand this from reading the first and the fifth chapters of the Adalila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We can get some understanding. However, from what I can understand over the years of being a devotee, the realization of reading the scriptures, the realization only comes through the mercy of the Lord. And how do we get the mercy of the Lord? Only by us chanting the holy names and hearing the scriptures. You know, I said the other day that to the degree that we're able to chant sincerely and offenselessly, and to the degree that we're able to hear submissively, to that degree, we will be able to enter into understanding these magical details about the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, it's not so possible. And that's why I say in the very beginning of this class that I am praying to be able to share something, because even though I've been chanting the holy names for some years, to be honest, 40 years of chanting Hare Krishna is nothing really, you know, to understand the Lord, given that it's been millions of lifetimes that I've probably been conditioned. So yeah, so please, you know, keep that in perspective, that this is like a baby, 40 years awake from zillions of years of being conditioned, and now trying to talk about this amazing Lord who is inconceivable. You know, I can't begin to even understand. I really a drop. However, I keep reading because that's the prescription that has been given to us by Srila Prabhupada. The prescription is to hear and chant. Those are the two main prescriptions, right? I mean, there's 9 prescriptions that is given to us. However, there's a focus on those 2, hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting, hearing and chanting. So as we said, as to the degree that we do that, I have a friend that's here with me. To the degree that we do that, to that degree, it will unfold. We will start understanding. We'll start getting realizations, deep realizations. So here, Bhishma Dev is explaining Adyo Naranaha, that actually Krishna is the first Narayan. And then he also explains in this verse, he says, and he is the supreme enjoyer, Pumam, he's the supreme enjoyer. And then he continues with one other part of this verse that says, Mohaya Mayaya Lokam, Mohaya Mayayam Lokam, that he's inconceivable, that he bewilders everyone by his inconceivable energy. And this is why Bhishma Dev is explaining that even though Krishna is in, you know, he's there in front of everybody, he's physically there. However, many people are not recognizing him because Krishna is inconceivable, right? He reveals himself only to those persons that are very dear to him. So Bhishma Dev, being one of the 12 Mahajans, and I believe over the times that we've been studying, we've learned about the Mahajans. There's 12 of them. And the thing that is important about knowing about the Mahajans is that these servants of the Lord, they are fully dedicated to receiving the mercy of the Lord. They are 100% completely, unconditionally devoted to the Supreme Lord. So Bhishma Dev is one of those persons who he's not affected by the material modes of nature. It's explained he's not really affected by that, by the modes, because he is totally absorbed in the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. He's what is explained in our scriptures as someone that is a Mahajan. He's completely, fully surrendered to the Lord. So here in this, and Prabhupada now, he's sort of going to explain to us. So here we understand Krishna is, he's bewildering the Vrishnis. Nobody knows who he is, but Bhishma is saying all these things about him. He's the first Narayan, and many of the people in that time worshipped Lord Narayan. They worship Lord Narayan in Vaikuntha. And so here Bhishma is saying, but Krishna is the first Narayan. So Krishna expanded into Narayan. Even today, for those of you that have been to India, you know that still there are many, many, many people in India that believe that Narayan is God, Narayan is Krishna. And so this is clarified for us in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about these Narayans and how to understand, who is Krishna and who are the Narayans. And it's Krishna is Narayan. Krishna is definitely Narayan. However, Krishna is expanded. And as I was saying earlier, even in the spiritual world, in Krishna Loka, where Krishna performs his pastimes, and he's performing his pastimes, with the gopis, he expands. Even there, when we read about the rasa dance, and we hear about how Krishna was with each gopi, he actually physically is expanding himself, right? So he's always expanding. This is Krishna's love for us, that he loves us so much that he makes himself available constantly in every, as being explained in this purport. He makes himself available in this material world, in different planetary systems, in the Vaikunthas, in the spiritual world. In Vaikunthas are the spiritual world. However, in Krishna Loka, where he performs these intimate pastimes, he's always making himself available. And so Prabhupada explains that this knowledge, one of the first things Prabhupada says, the first statement is this knowledge can only be understood through the deductive process, So what does that mean? That acquiring knowledge, getting knowledge about the Lord, we can only get it through a certain system. And that system is called the Parampara system. That system means that the knowledge is passed down from Krishna himself. Krishna passes the knowledge down. And in this purport, Prabhupada mentions somewhere, I'll look at it a little more, how Krishna starts expanding. And he first expands into Lord Balaram, his brother. And then there is the first expansions of the Lord. There are 4 expansion, which is Balaram, Shankarshan, who's Balaram, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and I believe there's one, there is someone else that he expands. So there's four of the initial expansions anyway. And so from that expansion, there are many other expansions and many other expansions all the way into these planets, into these material realms. And so what's important here is that to understand this knowledge, Prabhupada says, it has to come through the cyclic succession. And so Bhagavad Gita explains that to us in the 4th chapter, I believe, of the Bhagavad Gita. There is a verse that says, Tadviri paripatena paripashena sevaya upadeshantite jnanam jnanastadvadarshinaha, that this knowledge is given to us, that we must learn this truth by through humility, through being submissive, and through rendering service. So the exact translation of this verse is just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, inquire from that bona fide spiritual master submissively, render service, and that way a person will actually begin to see the truth, will begin to understand more about who Krishna is. So this is the first point that Prabhupada is making here in this purport. In order to understand this knowledge, we must hear it from a bona fide source. And so Bhishma Dev is one of those bona fide sources. He's an authority on the scriptures. So the question that is important to ask ourselves is, which authority are we going to follow? Which authority are we going to accept? Will we accept the authority of the scriptures and of the bona fide spiritual authorities? Or are we going to accept the authority of the speculators, the materialists? That's a constant question. It doesn't matter what tradition a person may be following. they always need to ask themselves that question, because each bona fide religion has some scripture. So they want to always ask themselves, am I going to follow what's in our script, what is in the scriptures, of whether it's the Bible, Quran, it's Kabbalah, whatever tradition a person may follow, they always need to question themselves. Am I going to follow that authority? Am I going to follow the authorities that speak on behalf of that scripture? Or am I going to follow the mental speculators? And so this is the question that Bhishma is really explaining. This is why he's taken the time to explain about authorities and about bona fide scriptures, because he knew that people would be faced with that in the future. He could understand that people are going to question, what's real. People are going to have doubts. And we know that, these self-realized souls, it's not that they don't understand about Kali Yuga. They don't understand the different ages. They know all about the different ages, and they know what's going to be happening. And so they speak in order to educate and inform and bring awareness to people in the future, like us, and people more in the future as Kali Yuga advances, when people really people don't want to accept the scriptures, what to speak about in the future. So that's the first point, deductive way of learning. It must be passed down through authorities. The second point that Prabhupada is making in this purport is that, and he gives some reasons. He says, why accept an authority? Why do we accept an authority? And he explains, just like when the child, asks the mother, who's my father, only the mother can say that, right? The mother can give that information. So he gives the example, the mother is the authority to identify the father, because of course that's a kind of intimacy between the mother and the father, only the mother knows that. And then he goes on to say, so authority is not dogmatic. It's not like, we are fanaticals and we're just saying only this authority, we should only hear from the Mahajans. These are the only authorities for you to hear from. Or we should only hear from, the Vedic paradigm. That's not the mood of really spiritual, mature spiritualists. Yes, we would love that everybody on the planet would want to hear about their relationship and understand what their relationship could possibly be with the Supreme Lord, because each and every one of us have a relationship with the Lord. However, a mature spiritualist understands that the Lord is so kind, is so very kind, that he expands himself in so many ways to make himself available to people of all different levels of realization, all different levels of consciousness. And so therefore, a mature spiritualist is always thinking, how can I bring this knowledge in a way that's palatable to someone that may be practicing a different tradition, walking a different path? That's what is meant by not being dogmatic. Dogmatic is when we're fanatical about our path. Our path is the only way. So we say, yes, our path gives understanding about the Lord that may not be so available to many other paths. However, each path is important for the elevation. It's like stepping stone, we step on a stone, we step on a stone, we step on a stone, we step on another stone. So each path is like a stepping stone to come to this ultimate understanding that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he is the original personality, that he is the first Narayan, the first personality that is expanded into the Vaikuntha planets, that he is the seed-given father of everyone, that he is the supreme enjoyer, because ultimately nobody can enjoy like Krishna. And we can learn that from his relationship with the gopis, how that relationship, how he's actually enjoying aspects of himself with the gopis, with Srimati Radharani. So these are very intimate understanding about the Lord. And we don't expect that everyone on this planet would have that understanding. And actually, Krishna explains that this knowledge, this understanding is very rare because it's most people, you know, just to think about having to hear the knowledge from some spiritual authority. Most people can't even, you know, many people in the planet cannot even begin to understand that. Yeah. So again, Bhishma Dev is explaining these points for us because because it is explained in the CC in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that this knowledge really is meant for the people of today. I was reading that today in the Bhagavatam, or yesterday in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, that this knowledge that we are learning is meant for the people of today. It's meant to help the people of today, everything that we're learning now, which is why it's here in this part of the Bhagavatam. And so then the other points that are important here, again, Prabhupada talks about the scientists. Prabhupada always talks about the scientists. And I wanted to share, because I had read this, I was giving a CC class, I think a few days ago, and I read where Prabhupada said this, and I had made this quote. Yeah. So he mentioned about the material sciences, and he said that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I think it's in the 14th verse of the 5th chapter of the Adilila. And he says here that he's talking here about empiric philosophers. We talked about that the other day, how the philosophers, they cannot understand Krishna. They can't properly explain Krishna. And then Prabhupada says everything, in fact, is inconceivable. It's inconceivable, for the truth is revealed only by proper persons. And so this is why we're studying Bhishma Dev, because he's one of those proper persons. He's the Mahajan. And he is actually been empowered by the Supreme Lord to be able to give us this knowledge. And then Prabhupada goes on to say that the perfect knowledge propounded in the revealed scriptures is confirmed by great acharyas. And that's how we know that this knowledge is actually revealed, because the acharyas have been given this knowledge, and they come and they pass this knowledge down. And he said, Prabhupada said, we have left ample commentation about them. None of the acharyas has disbelieved in the sastras. None of the acharyas. And then to the point where Prabhupada is talking about the planets, it's in the Adilila chapter 5, and it's text Adilila 5, and it's text 14. Yeah, so it's 5 and text 14. Chapter 5, yeah, the glories of Lord Nityananda, and text 14. Okay, so let's go down to a gross materialist. Text 14, yeah. And if we can, if we go down, we're gonna get to, in the highest realm, in the highest region of the spiritual sky is a planet called Krishna Loka, who has 3 divisions. Okay, here we go. So to a gross materialist, this kingdom of God, Vaikuntha, is certainly a mystery. But to an ignorant man, everything is a mystery for want of sufficient knowledge. The kingdom of God is not a myth. Even the material planets which float over our heads in the million and billions are still a mystery to the ignorant. Material scientists are now attempting to penetrate this mystery, and a day may come when the people of this earth will be able to travel in outer space and see the variegatedness of these millions of planets with their own eyes. In every planet, there is much material variegatedness, as we find in our planet. Okay, so then he goes on to talk about, this planet Earth is just an insignificant spot, insignificant in the cosmic structure. Yet foolish men, puffed up by a false sense of scientific advancement, have concentrated their energy in pursuit of so-called economic development on this planet, not knowing of the variegated economic facilities available on other planets. Okay, so we can take this off now, please, Prabhu. So basically, Prabhupada is helping us to understand, that people are foolish. Even he gives this example of the scientists, and I think in the purport, he speaks here about the moon, and he says, Prabhupada, he always makes different commentaries on things in the world. And so he is explaining, that people, these scientists, they tell us one thing, but really, however, it might mean something totally different. So Prabhupada has explained that, to go to the moon requires, as we know, a certain kind of body that can breathe in a certain way. And so he explained that it's not so possible that they went to the moon. It's probably, actually, I heard Mahatma Prabhu giving a class, and Mahatma was saying that he was on a walk with Srila Prabhupada. And one day they asked Prabhupada that question about going to the moon. And Prabhupada says, they probably didn't go to the moon. And then Prabhupada, and then this devotee was saying, but Prabhupada, they had pictures of them going to the moon. And Prabhupada said, yeah, they also had pictures of Godzilla, but is Godzilla real? Godzilla is this big ape personality, huge, He said, was that real? He said, so what? They can take pictures. So Prabhupada was discrediting that based on scientific evidence that he has as an acharya. So then the question again that we ask ourselves, are we going to accept the acharyas, or are we going to accept the mental speculators? Or are we going to be in the middle, just kind of doubting and not knowing, okay, I don't want, if I want to step over here and really, put all my energies into believing, this Vedic knowledge, and I'm also not going to believe the scientists, because I see things in my own life that I know that science has messed up. And then we stay in the middle. And that's a suffering state to be in the middle, because we can't make a commitment to anything. And then that really affects our consciousness. It affects our minds. So we can't function in what the materialists say. So we can't function with what this spiritual paradigm, what we learn from the spiritual paradigm. So yes, many people end up in that confused state. Anyway, here Prabhupada is talking about, he says how he's really emphasizing these points that Bhishma Dev is making about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, about accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada is helping us to understand. He's he's sharing with us different ways to look at this. Okay, look at it from a scientific perspective. Are you going to believe the scientists? Totally. And many people do believe the scientists, and many don't, because of different kinds of knowledge. Then he's saying, okay, let's say you don't want to walk the scientific route. Then there are other personalities, great personalities, that has accepted this fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He says here is an authority speaking about Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shankaracharya, who many of the impersonalists accepts. They accept the Shankaracharya giving impersonalist philosophy, but yet Shankaracharya is explaining about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he explains that in the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, this supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayor vidu sakale neha mahata yoga nashta parantapa. He says this supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken. Therefore, the science as it is appears to be lost. However, Shankaracharya, he's also accepting that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that Krishna is the first Narayan. Krishna expanded from Balaram to Shankarshan to Pradyumna to Aniruddha, and then all the expansions are coming from that expansion. And so, so Prabhupada is again trying to help us to understand what Bhishma Dev is saying. Bhishma Dev is just telling them, look, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For those of you that don't know, this is a fact. And the reason he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is he's also the first Narayan. Some of you here believe that Krishna is Narayan. Even I believe, I can't remember for a fact that it was Duryodhana, but however, I think it was Duryodhana that was worshiping Lord Narayan. Many people at that time, they were worshipers of Narayan, which is Krishna. Narayan is Krishna. However, Krishna is the original. Krishna in the Supreme Krishna Loka. We hear that there's three regions in Krishna Loka. There's Dwarka, there's Mathura, and there's Goloka. And in these places, in Dwarka, Krishna is he's like a king. He's wealthy. He's, has 16,000, however many wives, many queens, and he's performing all these beautiful pastimes, and he's, there with Rukmini, and he's there with Satyabhama, and he's doing all these beautiful, wonderful, pastimes with them in Dwarka, which is like it's a place of opulence. And then he's also in Mathura. Mathura is where he kills Kamsa, right? Mathura is where he's born. Mathura is his activities with Devaki. Mathura is the place where he is performing these pastimes to really kind of show people about his will, right? He kills Kamsa. He comes after he's born, as this child of Devaki. And all these activities happened, and by Krishna's will, he kills Kamsa. And then, of course, there's Goloka, where Krishna is performing all these beautiful, wonderful pastimes with the gopis. So this is the spiritual realm. And then Krishna, at the same time, has created the Vaikunthas, and there, Lord Narayan is there. So here, Prabhupada is helping us to understand this. And he's giving us these beautiful, wonderful examples. And using Bhishma Dev, what Bhishma Dev is saying here about how Krishna is bewildering everyone. He bewilders everyone by his Maya potency. So here we are in the material world, and I'm going to shift a little bit, because at the end, Prabhupada says, the bewilderment regarding Sri Krishna is due to the action of twofold, internal and external energies. And then there's us in the marginal energy, and that's why we can be in the middle of choosing. we have some kind of illusory choice in one way, because ultimately, in a final analysis, even choice we might need to question. However, we have this illusion that makes us think we have a choice, and we can choose. We can choose either the spiritual paradigm, or we could choose the material paradigm. And most people in the material world, they don't have any knowledge about this. And so Bhishma Dev and Srila Prabhupada are helping us to understand what choices are we making on a daily basis? What's our choice? And so he says that the living entities are expansions of his marginal energy, and they are sometimes bewildered. They're sometimes bewildered by the internal energy and sometimes by the external energy. So sometimes Krishna, he makes different kinds of arrangements all the time, because Krishna, he's God. He's not like an old man just kind of sitting somewhere and nothing is happening, He's active. He is so active. He's doing all kinds of activities, and he's having fun with all of us, and he's just watching, he even comes into our heart and says, I'm just going to sit in your heart and watch you as you do what you do, and I'm going to be there. And when you're ready, I'm going to okay, I'm going to be there. And then you could turn to me when you're ready. However, it's kind of like he's he's a kind of, I mean, this is material. We can't think about Krishna materially, really. However, because we're, at least me, I'm conditioned. I think about the perfect father, perfect father, he's like maybe Sahadev. Now I'm going to get a little funny because this text is very serious, actually. It's really serious. So just to lighten it up a bit, I'm just going to go to the reflection, right? The reflection of Krishna's internal energy is his external energy. And in the external energy, we have different participants. So one of those participants in this small little place called Earth is Sahadev Prabhu. And he has 4 boys, right? And he's that example for us of one of those persons that's trying to be exemplary for his boys, right? So he has fun with his boys, right? However, he can only have a limited amount of fun with his boys. And so Krishna, being the supreme father of all of us, he has the most fun with all of us. Just like we have this Radhakun's little daughter here, and she's very beautiful. Yes, you are so very beautiful. And, she was being cared for by her mom a little while ago. Mom was taking such nice care of her here. And so, this is the mood, Krishna, the Lord. He's always finding ways to take care of us in any way, every single way possible. And so this is why Bhishma Dev is taking the time to explain. Please understand. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. You can want to go to Narayan. That's okay. Okay. There's many personalities in the Vaikuntha planets, many, and it's a spiritual planet. However, depending on what kind of ras we want to have with Krishna, what relationship we want to have with Krishna, then that will determine where we want to go. And so here, where we will go. And so here, Bhishma, he has this kind of chivalry relationship with Krishna. So they're having fun. They're totally having fun. And so Krishna, he arranges for Bhishma Dev to fight and all this, because that's his way of interacting with his devotees, especially the devotees that he really have a relationship with, he really loves. And so Bhishma Dev is just reminding us, he's reminding us in every way possible that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. And then we see how Krishna also utilizes Arjuna to help us to understand this. And then, so in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, of all the yogis, Yoginama Pisarvesha, of all the yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service unto me. Madgate natar atmana Shadavan Bhajate Yomam. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Same yuktat mano mataha. So we are practicing bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is linking ourselves up with the Supreme Lord. And so Krishna says of all the yogis, the one that just simply renders devotional service to me, he is the most intimately united with me. And so that is what Bhishma Dev wants us to get. He wants us to somehow or other, somehow just kind of get awakened to this understanding that simply by us serving the Lord, this is what he's telling you to share. Okay, now you're a king and you're going to serve the constituents on behalf of the Lord. Therefore, this is important to know that the Lord himself is personally here with us, and how to understand him with all these variegatedness, with all his variegatedness, all the ways that he's on, in different planetary systems and different universes. And here, even in our world, this is what I got from this verse. There's so many other things in this verse. This verse is packed with a lot of philosophical truths. However, most of the philosophical truths here needs realization. And so I can only speak what I've heard. That's what I'm sharing today. Very little realization about the, about the understanding of what Prabhupada is saying in terms of the expansions and how all the expansions work. I can read them from Chaitanya Charitamrita. For sure, I can read all the expansions at the same time to really, really like have realizations about them. No, I can't say I do. So I want to thank you very, very much for giving me a chance to talk about this amazing, beautiful, wonderful verse. And I would recommend everyone to please read the CC. CC explains all about this. Okay, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mother, for your wonderful class. So nice to listen to you and explanation. I have a question in the quadruple expansions of Krishna.
Okay.
Yeah, because that is in the fourth canto, chapter 24, text 36 of Srimad Bhagavatam. 4:24-36. There it said that Krishna, by his quadruple expansion, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha, is the Lord of psychic action. That's the word of Prabhupada, psychic action. He said, namely, thinking, feeling, willing, and acting. These four expansions, like Vasudev is thinking, Sankarshan is feeling, Pradyumna is willing, and Aniruddha is acting. So Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha as the sun god, who is the controlling deity of the external material elements. So my question there is, Lord Shiva does not pray to Pradyumna or Sankarshan or Vasudev. Rather, he prayed to Aniruddha. So who does Brahma pray to in these four expansions?
Well, ultimately, everybody's praying to Krishna, ultimately, right? Even Brahma, he's praying to Lord Krishna. Now, Shiva is understood to be somewhat like Lord Krishna. However, from what I understand about the expansions, Prabhu, so there's the first expansion, which is Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and then there's another expansion from that expansion, right? There's like about 3 different expansions from that expansions. I read where all these different Narayans with 4 heads are on different expansion, on a part of a different expansion. So to answer your question, specifically which expansion of the Lord, which one of those 4 expansions is Shiva, Lord Shiva, praying to Vivashwan, and you said it, okay, Aniruddha, he's praying to Aniruddha, but there's 4 different levels of those expansions. There's a first level of expansion, Balaram, Sankarshan, Aniruddha. Then from there, there's a second set of expansions that are also Sankarshan, Balaram, Aniruddha. So, and then there's another set of expansions. And so out of those different expansions, I'm not sure exactly which one. I don't know if those, some of our scholars are on this call. You know, we have scholars, which I'm very excited to turn it over to the scholars, because I can't say that I know which one of, I know that you're saying he's praying to Aniruddha. However, I don't know which one of the expansions, because each expansion has different, like their spiritual, their spiritual responsibilities are different on each different one of levels of those Sankarshan, Aniruddha, Pradyumna, and there's 3 levels of that expansion. So I'm not sure which one of those levels which one of those Aniruddhas that Shiva is praying to. I'm not sure. And so, but yeah, I see Prabhu is here. He studied quite a lot. He may be a scholar in this area. This is one of those scholarly kinds of questions. Yeah, and I am very happy. Like I'm studying with one devotee that is just very learned and just really amazing. And when that devotee gets questions that are like kind of like somehow she just says, "This is all I got." So what I can say to you is that's all I got. I got that there are different expansions, and I got that there's different Aniruddhas, and I got that you're saying that Shiva prays to one of the Aniruddhas. I am not to and that Aniruddha is represented to the sun god, but I don't know.
Thank you.
So is Prabhu wanna answer that question?
Sadev Prabhu. Sadev, you have the floor. Unmute yourself.
I had to just keep chanting Hare Krishna, but I'll look up your question.
Yeah, I'm not making any attempt to answer that. I have no clue. What did you say? Did you say 4:24:26?
For the Bhagavatam,
Yeah.
Canto 4, chapter 24, text 36.
Oh, 36, okay.
36. And what is that canto? Who is speaking there? What's the section of the canto?
That's Canto 4. I don't know it's called the Quadruple Expansion.
Okay, the Quadruple Expansion. Oh, that's nice. I can go there and try to figure it out. Try to pray for some understanding. Pray for some understanding. Quadruple Expansion. Yeah, there's some scholars that we have that they really love to know about the expansions of the Lord. And it's important, I think, to have some understanding about it. However, there's scholars that they're attracted like magnets to understanding. Yeah, so you may have some of those there in Ghana, I'm sure.
I think 4:24 is chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva.
Yeah, because it is on the Quadruple Expansion, he was praying to Neruda.
Okay, well, I have a question. Mother, in the course of discussing this beautiful text,
yes,
you talked about which authority are we going to follow?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to follow the authority of the guru, of the scriptures? Or are we going to follow the authority of some scientists or whatever? Now, okay, I have two questions. I'm trying to see if I can just make it one question. One is on this same issue of authority. Sorry, the issue of authority. We see here, especially in the States, where we have this family courts, where lots of the time women go to the court to try to fight who is the legitimate father to their child. Now we have to go to the scriptures, and the scriptures is the one who is going to tell us who God is. We go to our mother, and our mother tells us who our father is. But sometimes we have some of these mothers who are not chaste. So they have kids, but they do not know who actually is the father to the kid. And so they go to the court. I've seen this many times. They go to the court and then they mention somebody's name. This person is the father to my son. And then they find out he is not the father. No, by the power of DNA testing. And then they will make many, like maybe 5, 6 times, and then finally they find a father. So if the scripture is like our mother, how do we know the chastity of that particular scripture who is telling us about God? How do we know? And the second addition to that is it's not just following Srila Prabhupada or the scriptures or following the scientists, but even amongst spiritualists who follow the Vedas, there are some who also give contradictory statements to the teachings Srila Prabhupada has given us. So how do we decipher whether to follow this person who is also a spiritualist following the Vedic scriptures, whose teachings is contrary to what Srila Prabhupada gave us? So how do we figure out which is which? Okay, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Wow, thanks, Saha. That's such a wonderful question. Yeah, in relationship to the mother, as you said, in a material, material courts, and being in a material court and dealing with father, who's the father of the child. So we know in Kali Yuga, as Prabhupada said in this purport, that there is, I think he said degeneration. That's how he called it. That's the word he used. So in Kali Yuga, there is so much degeneration, degradation. And so we understand that it will get more and more like that, where people are dishonest, not authentic. And that's just a part of the material, Mahatattva covering. So that's something that will be happening more and more and more. This is something it's not, now it still seems like it's not so normal, but it will become like normal for people not to know who the father is of their child. So that's in relationship to the material understanding of this. And then I just want to share where Prabhupada says here, in the material world, one may try to make everything permanent by developing the above mentioned qualities of goodness. But because the goodness in the material world is mixed with passion and ignorance, nothing here can exist permanently, despite all the good plans. And he's talking here about the scientists. And he's giving the example. He says, therefore, in the material world, we have no experience of eternality, bliss, and fullness of knowledge. But in the spiritual world, because of the complete absence of the qualitative modes, because of the absence of the modes, everything is eternal, blissful, and cognizant. So in answer to that question, those persons don't have knowledge, right? So they have no knowledge of eternality, bliss, and ananda. And so because they don't have knowledge, then they're affected by the modes of material nature in terms of Kali Yuga. So that explains the woman that may not know the father of their child. Simply, they're covered by the modes of material nature without knowledge. In terms of the scriptures, first, it's important to understand that there are different sampradayas, in the Vedic system, and the different sampradayas are giving knowledge, sometimes from different perspectives. And, as we said, that what's important, just like here, Bhishma Dev is saying that Narayan, Krishna is the first Narayan. So Bhishma Dev is automatically saying that Krishna is the original person, the original supreme person, right? However, there's so many expansions that are coming from Krishna. There's different expansions. So as we understand these expansions of the Lord, we also understand that these expansions, they come in order to educate, to bring wisdom in different ways. And so each sampradaya that is here on the material planet is following a different aspect of how they're, hearing from, let's say someone is hearing the knowledge from Vaikuntha, right? It may be a little different from what you hear in Krishna Loka, because in Krishna Loka, when you hear the knowledge of Krishna and the gopis and how they're interacting with each other, most people can't hear that. Even though they may be spiritualists, they may not understand, because that's even like Prabhupada says, there's a like a Krishna magic. It's kind of, not so available. It's kind of secretive in some ways. So first of all, we want to understand that there's different sampradayas that are giving knowledge from different perspectives. Now, in terms of every sampradaya would have some understanding of the absolute truth. Now, how they give the absolute truth may differ, and absolutely, some may give it in different ways. In terms of people that are like mental speculators, Prabhupada says, be very careful who we hear Bhagavatam from, right? Which, for example, which sampradaya are we hearing it from? And are those persons coming from that sampradaya authentic in terms of being a bona fide representative of the scriptures? So Prabhupada warns us about that. Now, how can we in Kali Yuga be protected from that? From the fact that, yes, in this age we're living in, there's so many cheaters. How can we not be cheated? Well, what's important is to be able to follow in terms of the path that we have, that has been chosen for us. It's really not even that we chose the path, it's that Krishna has sent his representatives, and his representatives, has picked us up. So we've been picked up by this path of bhakti. So in order for us to be chaste to the path of bhakti, then we need to follow what we learn in the path of bhakti from those bona fide representatives of bhakti, which is why we have these teachings of Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev is one of those authorities. As we say, he's one of the 12 Mahajans. So he's one of those authorities on behalf of the path of bhakti. And so therefore, it's in order to not be cheated, we need to understand who are the authorities that are speaking bhakti. Who are those authorities? And when we study the scriptures, we find out, just like Prabhupada is saying here, even Shankaracharya, who teaches a different a different understanding. He's an impersonalist. He teaches the realization, Brahman realization, which is also a part of the Vaikunthas. When we read in the CC, it's one of the layers of the Vaikunthas. However, that's not exactly bhakti as we understand it, right? But Shankaracharya is validating what the acharyas has said as far as bhakti is concerned. So once we get picked up on a path, then it's really important for us as, practitioners on that path to follow the authorities that's in that path. Now, we could say, well, we have seen people even in our path that have been, casualties, may have fallen from the path or had some challenge about the path, or even, there's, if you get a chance, if you look at all of you, if you get this chance, if you look at there's an interview with Vrajabihari Prabhu and Kunteya Prabhu, GBC, of the 12 gurus, initial gurus, the original gurus, the 12 gurus. And he was sharing very openly and very candidly, because he had one of those gurus that had some challenges. Actually, he has 3 gurus. He had 2 gurus that had challenges. And so, somebody could say, well, even on our path, we might have a guru that might have some challenges. And how do we know? How do we accept, right? How do we accept? Well, the fact is that at the time when that guru was conscientiously following the path, they were following the path of the Mahajans. They were following the path of bhakti. Now, they may have been challenged by material energy, because material energy has no favorites. We heard that the other day from the Chaitanya teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Anyone can fall, right, in terms of material energy. And so they had some challenges. It wasn't that, it may be that they had some weaknesses as human beings on the path, but it wasn't that they were speaking something that perhaps was not there in the scriptures. Maybe I think maybe 1 or 2 might have deviated to speak another path, bring another path into the path of bhakti, which we kind of all do in some ways. We bring in teachings of Christianity, or we bring in teachings of Islam, and we try to see how to, complement, those paths from bhakti. So sometimes we may have that may have happened. However, what's important, though, what's important that I understand, my limited understanding, is to really know, if we choose a path of bhakti, that there is a disciplic succession, and to follow the line of disciplic succession. And for those persons that may choose let's say, the path of Shankaracharya, then they need to follow the disciplic succession in that lineage. Even people that choose Jesus Christ, they need to follow a lineage in that path, because there is a lineage in that path. People may not know it, but there's scenes that really studied that path very, very sincerely. And so each path has a lineage that's coming from the Lord in some way. I mean, Jesus Christ is one of the representatives of the path of what he was teaching. He himself, right, is one of those representatives of the Lord. So yeah, it's important, I believe, for each person to understand which path they're really choosing. And what is the end result? Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj always used to say that. What's the end result of that path that you're going to follow? And who are your examples, right? We say Guru, Sadhu, Sastra. So we don't have that balance of in our tradition of the Guru being an example, the Sadhus also, having the behavior, the character, the virtue, and the scriptures. If they don't all complement each other, then yeah, we do need to be a little bit thoughtful and check, I mean, I know gurus today that say, check what other gurus say. I mean, it's kind of really unfortunate, but that's real. However, what's important though, is to know that whether someone is being devious or deviating, or whether they may just have a perspective on something how a person live or how they should do or whatever. I mean, sometimes we confuse whether someone really is following the scriptures, or maybe they're just giving us their personal, whatever, their personal perspective. Their personal perspective may be, don't do this because it's not healthy for you, or whatever. Don't eat this, it's not healthy. Don't eat it. that is that person's personal perspective. It has nothing to do with what that person understands spiritually. Does that make any sense, Prabhu? Saha? I mean, I was long with that. You made me think a lot, as always.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you for the class. I have one question when you mentioned about Krishna expanding when he was with the gopis. Expansions of Krishna when he's with the gopis. So my question is, we are told to follow the examples, the scriptures, to follow Krishna. Somebody asked me this question when I was in Mayapur. I passed it to His Grace Jananivas Prabhu. He didn't answer, he was just laughing.
I'm glad to hear that.
So somebody asked me, could it be, because that was when one sannyasi just had a problem and fell down. So the person asked me, could it be because we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna have all these pastimes with the gopis, that devotees are trying to follow the footsteps of Krishna and they are all falling down like this? So I went to Jananivas Prabhu. I asked him this question. He was just smiling as usual. He didn't say a word. He said, maybe those people are reading the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. So they want to be like Krishna. So when you talk about Krishna expansions, and in the material world, people being lusty, or so many women or so many men, I wanted to compare it with that kind of expansions of Krishna, where he has so many gopis and the living entity being a minute part and parcel of Krishna, trying to be like Krishna.
Okay, thank you. However, we read today that the living entity is covered by Krishna's marginal energy, right? Which means that the living entity also has material energy that they're covered by. And so this is definitely a person that is reading the 10th canto without reading all the cantos from 1 to 9. Yeah, can possibly have some challenges, because when we read the pastimes of the gopis and Krishna, if we're in material consciousness, it sounds like things in the material world. So many of the things we read can sound like that. However, it's important to get trained in the reflection, to understand the reflection before really entering into these pastimes of the Lord. Because it's not, it's very difficult to shift, as you said, from a consciousness of lust, material lust, which is again back to it's for me, it's for my enjoyment. It's not for Krishna. So what makes the shift in a person's consciousness is when they can understand that the bliss that Krishna is experiencing is with the gopis is purely a way of him. He's expanded himself. The gopis are just part of Krishna. They're really part coming from Krishna. So this is a way of him enjoying in a relationship that's with himself in some ways, because he's God. He's God. There's nothing that's separate from him. And so people that hear these pastimes about the spirit in the spiritual world, if their consciousness is still conditioned by the modes of material nature, yes, it's possible. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things with the teacher that we have right now that's teaching. I think every single class that teacher reminds us this knowledge about the gopis and Krishna entering into this rasa dance has nothing to do with the material world. Nothing. It's like we said, it's oil and water, something different totally in the material world. So we need to prepare our consciousness to hear that. Not that my consciousness is prepared. I'm not saying that. I'm just somehow there was some mercy that was given to me, some grace to be able to hear 10th canto at this time. But when I hear it, I'm like, whoa, Krishna. Like, for example, I just give a little tease of this. So today I heard, so this is just a little small example. So Krishna, he puts his fingernails on the gopi's face. But when he puts his fingernails on the gopi's, that fingernail, just by the gopis feeling the fingernails of Krishna on their face, they get empowered to sing. They get within themselves this ability to sing, and these beautiful songs that the gopis sing that we have today, the Gopi Gita. So that comes from just a little tip of Krishna's fingernails. Now, when I think of my fingernails, I just think of scratching and getting something off and getting this thing off of me and, moving something away or, it's all about me. You know what I mean? I'm not, you know what I mean? Somebody scratched me on the face. I'm not going to think, oh, you're going to make me sing. I mean, so it's a totally different consciousness. So that was just a little tease of some of the things that the relationship between Krishna and the gopis. And I don't understand it. I can't say I understand it.
Thank you, Mother. Sahadev has another question. Sahadev, please. Oh, sorry. Sahadev.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Let me set it.
Well, about Kusha Prabhu's last question and your answer to it, I think Srila Prabhupada has emphasized on this topic many and several times. That there is a reason why the Bhagavatam is arranged the way it's arranged. You have to go through cantos 1 to 10. If Srila Prabhupada says you jump, you break your leg. So that's what happens. We jump to canto 10 and we start reading about Krishna and the gopis. That was one of my challenges when I first was being trained as a pujari. I hadn't been on the altar before. I was always in the temple room, not on the altar itself. And I was wondering, how am I going to see the nakedness of Radha? In my mind, I was thinking, how can I do that? So I was reluctant to go into the altar, But well, my other question is, you were talking about the four sampradayas, and all these four sampradayas have their source from Krishna. So my question is, do all these four sampradayas land us in the same final destination? In other words, those who are followers of Sanat Kumara, Lakshmi, Shiva, we all, if one attains perfection in all these respective sampradayas, do we all end in the same destination? That's my question. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Saha. I just want to say something about 10th canto, because just also that Srila Prabhupada gave the Krishna book as one of those first books. So it's not that he didn't want us to know about Krishna, and it's not that he didn't want us to understand Krishna's pastimes. The 10th canto does give details. And if there's even more details, if we go to the acharyas like Vishwanath Chakravarti, there's so many more. We go to the Ananda Vrindavan Champu, where we go, there's so many more details that are there by the acharyas. But the Krishna book is, Prabhupada wanted us, he said, read the Krishna book every night and drink hot milk, right? Because he wanted us to hear about Krishna. So it's not that, I'm not, so yes, I wanted to make that point clear that we because sometimes, we can be practicing Krishna consciousness and we can be doing it out of duty for a very long time and not really be present to who we're doing it for and why we're doing it, who we're doing it for, why we're doing it. So that's what Prabhupada wanted us to know some things about Krishna. And that's why we have the Krishna book. So, it's important to read the Krishna book.
Well, Mother, I'm not cutting it short, but I've heard from lots of Srila Prabhupada's disciples who said, because I like listening to Srila Prabhupada's memories, and I've heard from at least 6, if not more, different disciples who shared that actually we have the Krishna book because Srila Prabhupada thought that he wasn't going to be here to write the Canto 10. And we wouldn't be able to have the Krishna and the gopis. And so he rushed and summarized the Canto 10 and then he wrote the Krishna book. But Srila Prabhupada himself did not want us to just straight away go to reading Krishna gopis pastimes without first going through the 9 Bhagavatams, like you said in your lectures, that if we do not read from Canto 1 through 9 and we go straight to Canto 10, 99.99% we're going to be committing aparats because of our conditioning. But if we start from 1, there is the chance that we might have a little bit of understanding, not to mistake it to be mundane. So all I'm trying to say is that Srila Prabhupada wrote Krishna book because he thought he wasn't going to be here long enough to write Canto 10.
Okay, thanks for that, Prabhu. Thanks for sharing that. I don't recall that. However, you heard Prabhupada disciples say so. Yeah. I just know when I came to Krishna consciousness, I was always encouraged to read the Krishna book. At night we read the Krishna book, and that was So thanks for sharing that. As far as the question about the sampradayas, my understanding is that the relationship that we have with Krishna, determines the different place where we may be interacting with the Lord. So the Vaikuntha planets are a place where a lot of the personalities that you asked about, that they go to the Vaikuntha planets. when a person wants to experience Madhurya Ras, conjugal relationship, then that relationship is in Krishna Loka. That's why when we read about Pandavas, or not just Mahabharata in general, we read that many of the practitioners were worshiping Narayan, Vaikuntha, because their ras was different. It was a different ras that they had. You know, there's Tasya, there's Vatsalya, there's different ras. So again, when we think of Mother Yashoda and Krishna, you know, they had that parental ras with each other, and that was in the spiritual world. So it's not like linear. You know what I mean? Things in the spiritual world, it's not like A, B, C, D. It's kind of all over the place. And so I don't know if that answers your question. But what I do understand is some persons do go to the Vaikuntha planets and interact with the Lord there. And they are described there. They get the bodies, people that go to the Vaikuntha planets, they have these very beautiful black bodies, just like the Lord. So I can't say, you know, exactly like from which sampradaya those practitioners would end up in the Vaikuntha planets. Yeah, it's just a different relationship. It's like when we come to your home, it's a kind of a different relationship than if we would go to somebody else's home, you know, different relationship.
Well, thank you very much, Mother.
Thank you, Mother, for your nice philosophical class.
That's amazing.
So
I'm
much.
totally over my head here.
It's good.
Totally.
It's good. It's good. Thank you so
It just
much.
makes me want to study more, learn more, just hear more, chant more, pray more.
Thank you so much. So there's no more question. We let you have some rest. So we ask all the watchers to kindly unmute yourselves.
Can I just say hello to Radhakund for being here on the call? I want to thank you very much for being here.
Unmute yourself.
Haven't seen her.
Hare Krishna,
Yeah.
Mother. Thank you so much.
Haribol, Hare Krishna, Haribol to both of you. Hi, you can and the whole
I'm
family.
sorry, the rascals, they're expert at this.
Where are you? Where are you, Radhakund?
We're in the US.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know. Just see. Hare Krishna. Speaking about going to different places, that's what happens.
It would be nice to have
Hare
you
Krishna.
here and just stay with us.
Thank you. Very well.
Thank you.
Kavi Prabhu, you didn't answer any of these philosophical questions.
Sorry, yes, Jack. I mean, they have taken light here. So, Hare Krishna, I'm hearing, I'm listening. Very nice, man. Really appreciate it.
We were waiting for you to answer some of the questions.
No, man. You answered all very nicely, man. You are more experienced in all this. Thank you.
And Shalika Prabhu, you know, I mean, there are people that are scholars. I'm not a scholar. I'm a relationship person. So, yeah, they're scholars, and I respect the scholars.
Hare Krishna, what to do is great.
Haribol.
I'm in the same situation with Kavi Kavanapur here. Right situation, so that's why my videos off. But all the answers are beautiful. They're well answered, Mother. We really appreciate them.
You guys are so kind. I love doing the classes here because you're just so kind. You know, it's just really sweet. And plus, this is my family. So you guys, whatever stuff I say that's crazy, you guys understand.
Oh my God. Thank you very much.
Mother, you know, we prefer doer than knower. And we know you to be a doer. So we don't, you know, but we don't really care much about, you know this or you don't know that, whether this person knows this or all we care about is the person is doing it. And you are our universal mother, and we're thankful for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we chant Hare Krishna for Mother, please. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Haribo. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Hare. Hey, look. Who are you? Hide your hand on the cucumber.
Udilo yaruna purava bhage, Vijamani gaura yamani jage. Bhakata samuha loiya sate, Gela nagara braje.
Akata Sahura Lorena Sate Ela Nagaraka
Bajalo kol, gana gana tahe janjera ro. Yanga charane nupura baje.
Premada Sonara Ane Punavache
Bolna bolore vadana bori.
Puna Madava Yadavaha Bolena Bolore Adhanana
Rati divasha sharia saje.
Shinidaba Shigelorirate Dimasha
Vimona dulaba manava deha, hayaki koro bhavana keho.
Mana Tulabha Manavateho Payake Kora Bhavana Keho
Jasoda suta, charame pori
Ebena Chale Yashoda Sutta Dharme Bori Belache Udita Tapana Hoyo Ashta Inagelo Bole Hoge Bashta Abekena Namashraya Kori Jatane Tu Takaha Apana Kache
Jagate asiye moduyana
Ivara Kalyana Sadana Khan Jagate Asheri Madhurana
Tapana rupe ridga gane viraje
Avijati Mera Tapana Rupe Ridgagane Vichache
Apan jurao bakati binoda
Shnanam Susabaranya Pan Ramakati Vinoda Pran Vishonada Aru Judha Bhuvana Mache
Gora Chandra
Gora Chandra Eve Jagoji Gora Chandra Bole
Maya Pisachi
Gotani Chacha Maya Vishachira
Sansara Bitore Buliaro hile tumi Ovidiaro bore
Buliaruhile Tune
Ite ami Hainu yavatara Ami bino bandhu yara ke ache tomara
Ami bina bandhu ara Keache tumara
Maya nashi barala
Eneche asudhi maya Nashimara
Hari mantra lao tumi magi
Harina mantra
Bhakti Vinoda Prabhu Charane Poriya
Kanti Vinoda
Say Harinama Mantra Loilo Magiya
Say Harinama mantra Oilo Majiya
Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare